Peace.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Self, and we will be starting Lunch and Learn in just 1 minute. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everybody. I'm John Self, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. It's Tuesday, I believe it's the 8th. We are going to be talking today about economic conditions, and boy, have we seen a lot of action on Wall Street. And yes, that will have some input on Main Street. So we'll be right with you. Stand by. We are going to focus today on some steps that you need to take if you end up having to go into the job market. One of the amazing things, and I've seen this over and over again for 27 years when I was an executive recruiter, is that people, when they get laid off, they get excited, they panic, and they just shoot off in 20,000 different directions. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to avoid that. And so let's get started. I think this is probably the most accurate quote we could possibly dredge up for this presentation. That one of the most common and costly search mistakes is giving in to panic. And I know that that's easier said than done. But the truth is, it is absolutely something that can really derail your search and can make it last longer. Because executives who storm into the market, and when we call this the cold job search, they are rarely hired before somebody else who's been strategically focused with a game plan. Now, ideally, you want to go into the job market with a plan and a robust network that's aligned with your priorities. That's what you really need to do. We can show you how to do it. We can help you get to where you need to be. But with all the tech, all the automation that's coming online, with the tightening economy, the probable layoffs, the possible recession, all the things that the various points, various economic advisors are talking about, you absolutely just can't go into the marketplace and go, oh, this is okay. I'll be all right. I've always done it this way. Why do I need to change? So our focus today is going to be on the increased threats to the economy and hiring, and it will affect hiring if this stays in, if this action continues for much longer. The common mistake, leaping before you look. Then three, disciplined job search, something that people struggle with even when they're not panicking, and steps that you need to take to go to market. So let's start off by talking about the increased threats because gosh knows that's been on TV. The other morning I woke up on Thursday morning and looked at the futures on my cell phone and I was shocked at what was going on. I thought that, this was the Wall Street version of the possible beginning of the end. And so I think that we have to come to grips with this across the board tariffs. And there are going to be people who say, no, it's going to add revenue. We're going to make so much revenue. It's going to be good for the American people. Across the board tariffs will add revenue for proposed tax cuts. That's true. But it will also drive up prices for the consumer goods and technology. Now, the president of the United States can jawbone all he wants to, but most companies are going to pass through this cost to the customer because there are a lot of these businesses like toy stores and groceries and well, grocery stores and other people, they work on a very, very thin margin. They can't eat 25% or 10%. And so you will see an increase in consumer prices. As we move forward, one of the things you want to keep an eye on is the consumer price index, and it's reported out, I think, monthly. You also want to keep in touch with the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey, which basically kind of tells you, is the public feeling good about where we are? Are they willing to spend money? And that's been negative for the last several months. So it's going to drive up the price for consumer goods and technology. The possibility of a recession, that's very, very real. Why? Well, when you jack up the price, people are going to spend less. And when people spend less, markets kind of decline, companies quit hiring or they lay off, and then you start chasing your tail. And I now think that widespread layoffs are, I've always said you need to be prepared for them. I now think they're a real possibility. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is to become job search ready. Even if you spend a little money and some time to get ready so that you're not caught dead, in the deer in the headlights, so to speak. Even if you don't need it, you're now going to be so much far. You're going to be further ahead than your counterparts because there will be other layoffs. There will be other changes that occur. Finding a job today without a network is just so unbelievably painful. So you need to get job search ready. Now is the time. If you found every reason under the earth, under the sky, under the stars, in front of everybody, if you found reasons that you don't have time to build a network, please change your point of view. You will get crushed. You will get crushed without a network. Why? Because 60 to 70% of all the jobs going forward are going to be posted not online. They're going to be posted. They're not going to be posted. They're going to be held by the companies, and they'll be filled. Excuse me, filled by recruiters, but more than likely referrals from networking people. So that's something you absolutely need to do. Increase geopolitical tensions. In addition to just having a trade war, if you listen to some of the rhetoric from China and some of the other countries, this is changing things, and this is probably, in my opinion, and you may differ, probably one of the biggest unforced political economic catastrophes in the last 50 years. This you're basically, when you slap tariffs on somebody and then want to go back and negotiate later, you've lost your advantage. And if you do it in public and you lose your advantage, you're going to look like you lost the negotiation. And the president doesn't want to do that. Xi Jinping and China is very, very stubborn, probably more stubborn than the president. But he also has he may be in big control of China, but he also has a, a Congress and party leaders that will not tolerate him looking weak to the world. And so if Trump tries to throw his weight around, they're not going to. Xi is not going to roll over. He's not going to kiss the ring. So we may have some actual physical catastrophes happening. If we go back and forth with China, we will basically probably be opening the door for an invasion of Taiwan. And that will be then anybody's guess what happens after that. But these are the 5 things I think that you need to consider when you talk about increased threats. Canada is not going to roll over, and we're already feeling some of the impact. The reports yesterday were the number of people arriving at JFK, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Miami is substantially decreased from prior years. So people are not coming to the U.S., to spend their money, and that's $1 trillion a year business for the United States. So let's talk about those common mistakes that I alluded to at the outset. First of all, losing a job ignites panic. Yeah, we've all gone through it. So, it's not a weakness. It is not it's just human that you start thinking about, how am I gonna pay the bills? How long can I go? What do I need to stop spending on? I mean, your mind goes in 20,000 different directions simultaneously. Financial issues typically fuel a compelling sense of urgency to find a job yesterday. Okay. So people begin to just throwing everything together, and they want to just run out into the market and find a job yesterday. That is a very bad idea. Because the rules have, if you haven't been in the jobs market the last 3 years or so, the rules have changed so dramatically that if you go into the market and you're not prepared, you're essentially wasting your time. And when you're looking for a job, wasting your time is the last thing you want to do. The other thing I really want to bring up here is that applying online is easy. And it's immediate. You can do it right away. You don't have to ask permission, but it's also an enormous waste of your time, because your chances of getting hired are probably less than 5%. Another way to look at it, if there are 2 or 300 people applying for the job, and that's frequently the case in management and executive recruiting, you're 1 in 300 or 1 in 200, 200 to 1. That's not a great odd. And so, in order for you to, if you're going to compete in that environment, you have to come forward with the best version of yourself, the best version of your brand, the best version of your ability to solve problems. Here's, what we're hearing. There are people, and it's not just one or two. There are dozens of people who've applied to as many as 200 jobs and got one or two interviews and no offer. So if you're struggling and you're depending on applying for jobs online, more than likely you're not going to end up with the kind of job you want. And if you do get the job, there might be something, the reason they're online is because there's some dysfunction in the company. So you need to be very, very careful of that. And again, get ready. Don't look for a shortcut. Don't look for the easy way out. Build a network and do it the right way. So what we're really talking about here is discipline. You have to be disciplined for your job search. And so no panics allowed. And you have to put in the work every day. If you don't do that, then you can't sit back and say, "Well, John, you were wrong. It took me forever to find a job." Well, the current time sequence of time to hire is about 8 to 14 months. That's up from 4 to 6 months through 2 or 3 years ago. So we've seen that kind of growth in the sequence of time to hire. And so if you waste a lot of time, if you're applying online, you're really just gobbling up capital and wasting your time. So you need to be very disciplined, and you need to put in the work every day. And that doesn't mean talking to your friends and going to play golf, or going to have networking coffee with friends and not talk about jobs that are available. And people do that all the time. Why? Because they don't like putting themselves out there, and then perhaps somebody might say no, or somebody might be offended that you're trying to find a job, and then you're asking questions to get market intel. You have to do those things. You really do. That approach is still pretty rugged, but it'll be more successful than applying online. Now, the classic dog chasing his tail. This is also the canine equivalent of online applications. Don't do this. Please, please don't do this. I know, again, it sounds counterintuitive that I've lost my job. I don't want to eat up my savings. I don't want to go into my retirement, and I just got to get busy in a hurry. Well, now you're relying on your prior view of the job market. That market doesn't exist anymore. Okay. And so now you have to approach it entirely differently. And you have to understand the new rules. And if you go into the market before you're ready, you're going to end up wasting time. So take the time to get ready on the front end, and your resume and all those things that you're going to need. Don't waste your time by starting to just file applications. Again, I've heard of people who made two or 300 online applications, and guess what? They got one or two interviews and no offers. So don't be this guy chasing your tail. So let's talk about the steps to go to market. First of all, you got to be disciplined. You got to have a plan. And the plan needs to be based on, we're not talking about a career plan now. We're talking about a job search plan. And it needs to be tied to the geography. Where do you want to go? If you want to stay in your local market, great. Is it possible for you to be able to stay in your local market and find a job? In places like Tyler, where I'm based, if you're a healthcare executive, you're not going to be able to stay here because there are basically two systems in town and they're not going to hire from each other. So you'll be forced to move into a different market. So it's really important that you have a plan, that you know which markets you would like to look at in the case of being terminated, laid off, whatever. And you need to then start targeting those organizations, follow them, follow those organizations, because recruiters, if you're following an organization on LinkedIn, recruiters will sometimes look at the people following them and recruit from that list. Okay. But you want to look geographically, and then you want to go in and target the top companies in that marketplace. And you want to then start building connections around those targeted companies in those markets that you're interested in. Now, the more markets you have that you're willing to look at, the quicker you're going to be able to find a job. A lot of people struggle now because, they promised their kids or their wife they wouldn't move again. So they're trying to figure out how to stay in the local market. Even in Dallas, it's really, really hard because there is that white collar recession. Companies simply aren't hiring managers and executives at the pace they used to hire at. So it's a real challenge. So you need to have your targets, and you need to build connections within those targets. So you're looking at geography, you're looking at targeted companies, and you're looking at building connections. You also really need to take the time to understand your value. Once you get into the marketplace, that's not a good time to start trying to figure this stuff out. Create a value brand statement. It's a two or 300 word sentence, probably about 100 and 150 words, that basically says, here's who I am. When they ask you that in the interview, they're not asking you to show them your resume or talk about your resume unless they specifically mention that in the question. No, what they're really interested in is who you are, how you think, and, would I like this person to be in our organization? It's really, really important. That's why they ask that question. They're listening for your values. They're listening for your value. Did you accomplish a lot? Give us specific examples of what you accomplished. Those are called quantifiable achievements. If you don't have quantifiable achievements in your package, you're probably not going to get advanced. So if you have questions about that, how to get that, how to keep track of all that stuff, you can set up a free call with me at john@johngself.com and go to the bottom of the web page at johngself.com and click talk to John. And I'm happy to help you. Um, so you want to be sure that you have your value brand statement. And then you want to build or reassemble an easily customizable resume. Well, people always say at this point, well, the resume writer said it was optimized for the industry. That is a large load of El Toro, you know what. If it's not based on a specific algorithm, your chances for getting selected are substantially diminished, because that computer in the applicant tracking system with the algorithm is looking for certain keywords and phrases. They're looking for a certain amount of experience and the type of experience you might have had. And if you don't match up 90+% of the time, you're not going to get that offer for a position. So you want to have a customizable resume that's easy to revise so that you can really hone in your messaging to whoever is going to be doing their search. Either HR takes it and performs it out, or even a recruiter from an outside firm. Okay. The next thing you must do is create a messaging plan. What are you going to say when they say, John, tell me about yourself? What are you going to say? What clever things, what pithy things, what engaging things can you tell them about your life that might make them want to get to know more about you? And I think that's really, really important, because people they're going to hire based on trust and likability. Now, yes, experience is important, and if you don't have it, the computer will kick you out. But you really have to be able to feed that computer information about who you are, what you do, when you work for certain places, and the accomplishments that you achieve. I reduced overhead by 17%. Great. 17% of what? Okay. That's what the computer's looking for. 17% of what? 17% of $100 is not much. That's a pretty poor uh, record because you don't know what the baseline is. 17% of $100 is not much. 17% of $20 million is quite another thing. So you want to be sure that you're making the strongest possible case using quantifiable achievements. And if you're using percentages, be sure you track them back to the base number. Okay. Don't expect the employer to do it. You have to do it for them and answer those issues in your resume, which is why you another reason you want to customize, because when you read the job summary, you're going to say they want this, 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 and this. So 20 years of experience with a master's degree and certifications and whatever. Okay. So you start your professional summary saying, I'm a master's prepared executive with 20 years of experience, blah, 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 and just basically write a sentence that kicks back everything that they say or ask for. That's what you have to do. And, when you get into the interview process, you got to be sure that you are selling yourself and talking about how you can achieve success for that organization. If you don't sell yourself, don't expect them to read your resume and catch it and suddenly be, just absolutely phenomenal. Oh gosh, this guy went to Harvard, he went to Yale, he was at Wharton. They're interested in that, but they want to see what you've done with your life. Did you make profits? Did you beat project deadlines? Did you save money? Those there, and you've got to have the specific comparisons, the before and afters. The messaging plan is basically sort of the language you want to use, the issues you want to stress. Some people they go out of their way to include, if they're very strongly based Christians, they may go out and look for ways to kind of work in that kind of code. Whatever you want to do is what you do. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that when you really absolutely have to be able to match the algorithm and give them the information that they're looking for. Okay, the next thing you want to do is be sure you do the research on your talent, read talent geographic and regions and the talent in the organization. And LinkedIn's really great with that. Now, in tracking people down, LinkedIn is wonderful. Also, you also can use industry directories, etc. You want to target geographic regions and companies in those regions that where you say, okay, I want to move up. Here's where I'd like to move up because it's a good town for my kids. My wife will like it, etc. So you make those kind of decisions. You don't decide you're going to move to Fort Worth, Texas, before your kids have really had a chance to kind of size it up. So, it's changing jobs and building a career is really a family experience. So you have to have planning because you've got too many variables out there to just shoot from the hip. You want to make the connections using LinkedIn, and how you do that is you go up to the dialog box in the top left-hand corner and you say, Memorial Medical Center or Johns Hopkins University. It'll bring up all the list of the people from those organizations that listed, that are connected to their website. And so now you're going to start getting names of people that you can connect with and hopefully build a relationship with, so that if you need a job, you can reach out and say, I'm on the market. Have you heard about anything? Okay. That's kind of how you do this. That's networking 3.0. So you have discipline, a plan, and the plan focuses on geography, targeted companies, and connections. Okay. Now, in part, we're providing today some downloadable resources, and you can get that at john@johngself.com and click the ribbon on the right-hand side of the page, and it talks about our membership program. Go to that page, and you will be able to find the downloads. Some of them we just put up again this morning, and they're free. If you have any questions, you also get access to a free Zoom call, and that's at the bottom of the web page. And just schedule it with whoever is on the phone that day. If you decide to call in, or if you want to email me, we'll get something set up. But these downloadable resources are chock a block with information and insight to help you advance your career. Okay. Tomorrow after no, excuse me, Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we'll have another group coaching session, and it'll be on YouTube and LinkedIn as this one is. Begins at 4 p.m. Central Time on Thursday. It's called Office Hours, and we'll be posting the subject of that coaching session. If you miss one of these live sessions, we invite you then to go to our webpage, Guiding Your Career, John G. Self, and you can see examples of our replay. So I hope that that's helpful to you. If you have a need and you're really struggling with your job, let me encourage you to look at our membership program. You can get access to all the downloads. You get a subscription to our newspaper, our daily newsletter, Monday through Friday, and you also get 2 hours of coaching, like you just saw, plus 4 30 minutes calls with me every month to sort through your recruiting and to ask questions and for us to work on things that you're struggling with. We've been very, very successful in helping people place into new jobs, and we know we can help you. So I hope you'll consider that, especially in the master class on interviewing that'll be coming up as a webinar, probably in the early fall. So I hope you'll remember that. And if you have troubles, if you're getting to the table and can't close the deal, you might consider taking that master class in interviewing. I've interviewed almost 9,000 people in my career. I've taught the interview course for a global professional association. So that's one of my super niches, and I'm pretty good at it, I'm told. So I'm happy to work with you and help you become the confident, better interviewer that I know it lives inside of you. All of you have stories. All of you have stories, and telling stories and wrapping that story around the data that I said you needed to give, the quantifiable achievements, et cetera, the before and afters. By doing that with a story, you'll become memorable and meaningful to the client. And remember, the client's going to hire someone who is trustworthy and who they like. And so, as you're going through the job search process, not only do you have the challenge of finding open positions, because there are not very many right now, and it's not going to pick up anytime soon, but you also have to, when you get into the table, you have to you have to build likability and trust. So that's our 30-minute session for Tuesday. I hope this has been beneficial. You can see the replay coming up on YouTube later this afternoon. So we hope you'll take a look at it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.